Hi there, Glocal citizens. Welcome back to the podcast that inspires a borderless mindset around manifesting a new world. I am your host, Florence Adu, coming to you from winter. I just got to say it. I've been in winter for the last few weeks. I think the last time we connected, I was flying away to come to winter, and I was blessed with a holiday season of spring weather in Colorado. Came back to frigid winter here in New York, and it looks like there's a little bit of a thaw, but I'm shortly headed back to Ghana. I'm happy. And my guest today is a returning champion. He graced our airwaves back when we first started. We were just kind of catching up on when we first connected on the podcast. We've known each other for a long time, but the podcast was right before COVID. And so look at 5 years later, almost 6 years later, where we all are. And he has come a long way in that time. So let me get to his bio, and then we can pick up the conversation. He is a senior policy advisor and digital strategy leader with over 25 years building infrastructure and shaping transformative policy across Africa. In his career on the continent, and now as managing partner at Digit A, he has guided projects and policy innovations that have created impact in countries across Africa, helping to set the pace for inclusive digital development and entrepreneurial growth. He has led the rollout of innovative platforms such as the UNDP Africa Timbuktu policy approach and national innovation and entrepreneurship strategies. As senior special assistant on digital transformation to the president of Nigeria, he steered Nigeria's largest startup policy rollout, including the acclaimed Nigeria Startup Act, widely recognized as a benchmark for digital economies. He has shared his insights at TEDx, the United Nations General Assembly, BBC Africa, CNBC Africa, and the Wharton Africa Business Forum, and has graced numerous influential panels and stages globally. He's also an entrepreneur. That's where we were when we first met. Board member and published author. His book, In Pursuit, came out in 2022, I believe, and that was to great fanfare. And we'll talk about that. He is a tireless champion for African innovation. He believes the next startup to impact the world will start in an African village. And I too believe that. Mr. Oswald Osaretin, Guobadia. Welcome to the podcast.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm good. Thank
you very much.
Yes. Thank you for coming.
It's been almost 6 years.
Yes, literally almost 6 years. So let's get caught up. Caught up for our audience. Where are you from? Where are you local? And what is your craft?
I am from Nigeria, Benin City in Nigeria, to be specific. This very minute, I'm in the cold, as you mentioned, frigid cold and Lagos. And what craft? Currently a policy advisor and innovation strategist.
Okay. Policy advisor and innovation strategist, which is an admirable craft, given where we are in the world today. So let's get to why and how you got into that space, because you straddle this, you're this global citizen like myself, you straddle living both in West Africa as well as the States. And you started that journey as an entrepreneur, which is something that you covered in your In Pursuit book. Tell us a little bit about how that story was captured in the book and a little bit about the why, the where. How did you come to be living, working, and playing in this bi-continental lifestyle that you currently have adapted?
Yeah, that's it's interesting because when we spoke 5 years ago, so we had a conversation about entrepreneurship and Nigeria and Africa and leaving America, a whole 9 yards. Since then, I think like entrepreneurs do during COVID, we released a book, right? So myself, co-conspirator Chukwuka, we had a break prior where we said, look, we're going to write a book about some of the things we've seen and done so far. We wanted people to understand the story and the journey of leaving America and going back to Africa with the desire to aid the continent, grow. Or try to have that impact on the continent, because there's so many great opportunities on the continent. And we had this break during like a political government change. We say, hey, what are we going to do with this, 2-3 months, which tends to be 2-3 months or 6 months sometimes, of economic inactivity. And what we decided to do, started playing around with the idea of writing a book, start putting things on paper, start gathering our thoughts. It's a very intricate process writing a book. Sometimes I say, I'm not sure I can do it again because it's actually very, very revealing. You give a lot of yourself to, maybe it's a book about a subject. It's also difficult, but a book about yourself is a bit unique. So, but what then happened is we had a manuscript, but then came COVID. This is now, a period of real global inactivity. And we said to ourselves, this is probably the best time to release a book that would, for starters, take up our time doing all the work that needs to be done to release a book, and two, provide some content for people to read while we're all stuck at home. So there's the book, In Pursuit.
Okay. So you talked about the book and you talked about how it came about, but take us a little bit further back to your decision to then be in Nigeria, because you had a flourishing career in the United States, and then you decided, let me do this piece of going back and doing what I know how to do in Nigeria. So I guess in slight summary of our conversation back then, but just tell us a little bit more about what was entailed in that decision and how you have felt landing.
So the decision to move back to Nigeria, and funny enough, I was just having this exact same conversation with a younger cousin yesterday. Not just younger cousin, I actually had this conversation with two different people in the last 3 days. Nigeria in 1999 till about 2004 and longer, it was just an interesting growth period. There was a lot happening. It just seemed like Nigeria, Africa, just like it seems now, just that now we're a bit more experienced and we've done it for close to 2 decades. Actually, not close to, over 2 decades now.
Yeah.
For young people, I think in that period of time, we saw the potential of what Africa offered, and we saw that our skill sets that we've gathered would be impactful to the continent, which it has been. And we all took that leap. We quit great jobs and focused on, what economic activities we could do on the continent. And over the last 20 years, we've, and I say we, but, myself and others included, have built companies that continue to exist. And I've had, a very number of impacts across the continent, from infrastructure development to financing structures to consulting work to, building entities that help others build. There's now created the economy in which you see now. Still struggling, lots of potential, which is more a better way to put it than saying struggling. But everything is on a foundation basis, right? So some of the foundation has to be put in place, and some of the activities that have been done over the last 20 years and longer, because there were the people before us, we never should think they were the first ones, it's all been putting the foundations in place. And that foundation and structural work is still ongoing at different levels. So some of the outputs you see today, when you look at the fintech, when you look at some of the different unique businesses that are starting, are all based on this foundation, right? You can't do fintech if you don't have banking security. You can't do fintech if you don't have infrastructure, if you don't have fiber and ground, if you don't have cable, if you don't have what. So all these things need to go in place. If you don't have mobile, all these structural things need to be in place for the next set of mind-warping growth on the continent to happen.
Right. So I have a guess of how that turned into a career in policy. But you tell us, how did you make that jump? How did you start your career in public service?
So Nigeria, Africa, as we say, is full of opportunities. One day you're the infrastructure guy, and the next day you're being told to stop talking and come do it in the public sector space. In the continent, I've been noted to say that every business person entrepreneur should have a very strong sense of the policy space that guides the business and the sector they're in. I think through my time being an entrepreneur, and still am in Nigeria, on the continent, you always kind of question the policy space. Like, what exactly is happening in government? What are they thinking about when they decide to do X, Y, Z? So that always leaves a challenge. And I think I always challenge myself that if I'm ever put in a position or asked to lead my business to come work in the public sector, that I would do it, to the point that I had a government resume ready to go. Yeah. When you run your business for a long time, you start to realize that there's a certain space that you can't control, and you want to go understand that space so you have a better understanding of the business you're in and how to better improve that business environment that you've been working in. Because, it's almost like you're banging your head against the wall. If you think about it properly and you have the right mindset about it and mind frame about it, you're going to want to know what holds that wall up. And you're going to know what's behind that wall. And that's exactly what happens when you go into government. So that's the way I saw it. And I think the work that I did when I went into government is quite evident in my intention of going into government. Because the very first thing, what is going on here? How do you guys push paper around? What does this paper mean? What do you do? And it led to what we refer to as the Nigerian Startup Act, which is really a paper that is filled with a bunch of provisions that help businesses scale the number of issues in Nigeria. So it was basically a call. A call happened saying, hey, there's an opportunity here to do X, Y, Z for the government. And I said yes. And then went to my drive and pulled out that government resume and looked at it. Still made sense. And I sent it. There we go.
Okay. It's so interesting because I started my career in policy. And so I understood how we worked inside and I understood what we needed to do to make the business enabled. And it was in tech specifically. And so what I found is I continued in policy. And to your point, you do want to know what's going on. And you want people on the inside that can make a change. Right. And so where I have now moving more into the private sector, knowing that I still have to deal with this policy side, but also knowing because of where I came from, that there's a lot of smoke and mirrors in this policy place. A lot. So, and particularly in Africa, so I've banged my head against that wall as well. So when you think about young people now, you're saying know the policy environment and be able to function in it. When you know it's still fraud, it still hasn't reached its fullest potential. What kind of advising would you give a young entrepreneur to know, but then to almost transcend the policy space, if that makes sense? Because the ecosystem needs rejiggering, right? Because policy still lies in the legislative policies and processes, more so processes that came from our colonial backgrounds, right? So we still haven't adapted to, okay, well, this is how policy is based on how we create these structures based on what they have left for us. But now we are truly trying to create what we want for us. So if you're speaking to young people, how now would you potentially advise them on how to deal with that policy understanding and how to then really make it work for them and the new us?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely relate, and I actually have a big smile on my face, you guys. But what I would say is that things have changed over the last 10 to 20 years. There's a lot more transparency, right? So some of the things that were, I guess lack of better words, happen in the dark, it's a bit more difficult to do it. I think the greater danger is this. If we don't engage, then the cycle sort of continues. So the follow-up part of saying to every entrepreneur is understand the policy space that guides your business. The follow-on to that is also that they should organize as a group of people and engage the policymakers as it relates to the policy space that guides their business. You can't leave it without engaging it because that collaboration is important, the collaboration and the coordination. And some of the things that we suffer in the policy space and in general is the lack of collaboration and coordination between the private sector and the public sector. I tell people all the time that before I went into the public sector space, if you asked me who the ecosystem was, I would say it's me. I literally point to myself, right? Like not even anybody else. It's me. I'm the ecosystem, right? And that individualism is part of the problem. If we can't even engage our cohorts, other people who are in the same space as us, and then learn to collaborate and coordinate with them, and understanding that, ultimately, things that are pain points in our business, in the environment, ultimately should become provisions in the public sector space, then we are failing. That dynamics has to change. And the other thing we also don't understand is that the public policy people are operating in a vacuum that's created by the lack of engagement from the private sector people, right? And that vacuum is going to be filled. They'll fill it up with something, right? And if you don't fill that space up, they may end up filling it up with a mimic of your business, right? As in, it'll be a governor-sponsored version of what you're trying to do. Because that need, you're not the only one who identifies that need.
Right.
Right. So the public sector folks also identify that need, and in their aim to serve mankind, serve the public, they may just build your business.
It's true. It's true.
Yeah, it happens all the time.
Yeah. And not necessarily well. So that's part of that kind of...
Oh, yeah.
That leads me to this idea of the digitization versus the digitalization of governments, right? So tell us about that in the context of Digite, coming to that realization and starting that. Tell us about that distinction and how making that distinction will ultimately transform the policy environment and the ability for us to do that engagement on a broader scale and more effectively.
So I would have to take you just one step back from that. So basically what tends to happen is that technology is very trendy, right? On my desk here, which you can't see, is a pair of goggles that I bought in 2014. Now, these goggles are ski goggles. And these goggles, man, in 2014, myself and I think a friend of mine, you may know him, Ira Spencer, we'd have robbed the bank to buy these goggles. They were very expensive. They were the latest. They were ski goggles. They had all the digital stuff in there. You can see your path. You can map out your everything. And, we used them, I want to say maybe 5 times, and then put them in the closet where all my ski stuff is. And I've not touched it since then. Now, today I grabbed it because I may be going on Saturday, and I can't even find the right charging cable for it.
Right.
Right? Not because the charging cable is unique or one of those, I forget the word for it. It's just literally the last cable for the USB-C.
Yeah.
Right? That small pit. Yeah, so now I have to go look for it. Now I found it. I'm not. So technology is very trendy. And recognizing that, I see there's a massive problem when we talk about digitalization projects, right? When we talk about digital transformation, there's an issue with how we look at it. Because ultimately, there are several instances of digital transformation. When you think of a country, you have to ask yourself, which instance of digital transformation are you at? Right? Which slice of bread are you at? So you can never say that Africa and some countries in Africa are on the same level of digital transformation as America or even Estonia, for instance, which is a classic example we use. So it now sort of bastardizes the term digital transformation because every single thing is a digital transformation. And the example I tend to use a lot of times is music, right? So when you go from gramophone to 8-track, 8-track to cassette to CD, CD to laser, laser to LP to laser, the laser was beautiful, but it didn't really last. We have several digital transformation instances that we did and they make any sense. VHS, Betamax, Betamax was better technology. VHS had better marketing and better use. VHS won, right? Now I'm saying things young people don't know. But in essence, what I'm trying to say is that all those things were digital transformation, right? So now what we must understand is that it's a journey. So back to music again. You now had laser. Laser didn't work. We now went to CD, small form of laser, fantastic. CDs were great. Remember you got your CD man, fantastic. But then we got this little box thing that could hold 2,000 songs. Come on.
Right.
That blew away the CDs, right?
Mm-hmm.
And now it's just music anytime from anywhere. It's just in the air. Just grab it. Grab whatever you want anytime. Name the song. That's a journey.
Mm-hmm.
So what I tend to say is when you're looking at development, you must look at digitalization from a evolutionary perspective.
Yes.
And look at digital transformation and fix a digital transformation as slices within that digital evolution and say, where are you exactly? Because you have to map different countries against this thing. So you can't just say digital transformation. It's confusing.
Mm-hmm.
Which one are you doing? Some people are doing AI, some people don't have cables. Where are we? If you look at what AI takes paper, which is now that word, digitization, right? So AI means you have to convert paper to digital, which is digitization, convert paper into some kind of data pool, convert that data pool into something like machine learning before you get to AI. But if you're still having paper, which is our continent, right? What are we talking about when we talk about AI?
Right.
So I think what we have to be careful is these terms lead to us jumping and not going through a normal developmental cycle when it comes to technology. Digitization is turning paper to data, turning things to data. And digitalization is the entire process, is the process of systemizing processes. First it was manual, now is automated. That is digitalization. And I think when we look at it even for private sector companies, you're not all on the same levels. I mean, because it's more commercial and economic, companies tend to move fast when it comes to digitalization. And also what tends to happen is that the vendors tend to move you.
Yeah.
Right? You're on Windows 2000. You cannot stay on Windows 2000 forever.
Mm-hmm.
Your OEM can move you,
Mm-hmm.
right? But the entire country can still be stuck on old technology and old processes. What you would find a lot of times in some of these countries is that they offload from technology, from a digitalized process back to paper.
Really?
Right? Oh, yeah. There's several instances where I'm trying to think of one right now, and none comes to play, where you go to a screen and you type it and you fill out the form, but when it's time to process it, you find that you need to print out the form.
Ah, yes.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So you're basically offloading back to paper.
Yes. That's Ghana. Yeah. Right. Basically.
Yeah. There you go.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it happens a lot. So you're offloading back to paper, or I remember in State House, when a document comes in, this is the villa, basically the White House for Nigeria. A document comes in, and this is the same with all ministries. A document comes in, fantastic. It gets digitized, right? It's scanned in, and it's in there for records. You can always go there and pull it up. But when you say you want to respond to a letter, or you want to get all the records about something, so you can create a new file or something, it gets printed for you.
Mm-hmm.
And a file is handed to you for you to process and work on and recreate so it's a lot of offloading. So that's a digitalization process, right? It means a problem, I should say. It means the process is not end to end. So I don't know if I answered your question, because I think I kind of gave you
the landscape. You did. And so that last bit really touches on the challenge, right? So I'm a business. I have to work with people in the policy space who are working in these two analog and digital places, and I just want to move forward. So when you think about young people solving problems, because what I had this idea, is like, the best job that I can advise a young person to take, this is maybe 5 years ago, is to be a policy implementer, because we need so many people that are young and fresh in mind to then really bring that fresh spirit and understanding of this world we live in now to the policy space. It didn't really work because I don't believe there are that many more.
Boring.
Yeah, right. It's seen as boring, unfortunately. So we have a marketing problem there. But at the end of the day, it is policy implementers that make the world go round, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, because, okay, this is something I tell people. So you have to look at an idea as a seed.
Yes.
Right? I've repeated this several times.
Mm-hmm.
It almost sounds like a broken record. Mm-hmm. An idea is a seed, right? Now, that seed needs to be planted in something.
Right.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
And that soil and environment is being planted in is the policy environment. Mm-hmm. Right? Financiers, funding, investors, that's all irrigation. So that's water. Mm-hmm. You're going to water the seed. So what tends to happen is that if the policy environment is not right, which is the soil is not right, you could water all that seed all you want. You could put all the funding you want. Oh, just keep watering the seed. But ultimately, that seed is not going to give you the right yield.
Yeah.
If the soil is not right.
Right. Yeah.
So you see instances where you speak to an investor, say, oh, this is a great idea. I invested X in it. And it should have yielded 20x, because look at the market. Well, look at the market. I mean, you 200 and something million people, 1.5 billion people on the continent, 60-70% are under 25. So what's missing, right? What's missing is the economic environment, the policy environment. And that's why that seed is not going to yield what you thought it would in your model when you invested in that company. It may end up being like 2x, 4x, and you probably celebrate it because you're happy not to have lost your pants.
Exactly. Whew. So many solutions to be made in this space. So yes, that is the startup. That is the challenge for young entrepreneurs. Thinking about your work with entrepreneurs, right? So you have the Startup Act, like you had very much focused on startups in general. In this time, how have you seen the act and these efforts actually, transform the ecosystem in Nigeria and in other countries that you've been able to, kind of evangelize and share these stories and practices with?
So one of the biggest wins of the Nigerian Startup Act was it brought trust and faith to the process. Mm-hmm. I think one of the problems we have in Africa is a very low trust. We have a very high trust deficit.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And there's a bit of the lack of faith in the system. During the process of developing the act, there was a sort of camaraderie among people in the ecosystem, because it brought a lot of different people in the ecosystem together to understand that this is something we can do and this is something that's supposed to help us. Now, the act is still being implemented. Okay. It's a process, but some of the benefits of the act have been seen. There's been some investment positions that have been made on the country. There's been a few adoptions of the act. A number of states have gone ahead and created their own version of the act and adopted the process. At least a bunch of them, because Nigeria is a federation, so every state sort of has to develop their own set of laws that guides businesses within their state. Mm-hmm. And they've done this with the principle of we must be able to attract great minds and ideas to our states to have those ideas be developed in our state. One of the things that becomes very evident when you start to do development of laws in a federation, you start to understand that in the federation, there is no, as a business person, there is nobody in the federal capital, mm-hmm, right? Mm-hmm, in the federal government, mm-hmm, right? Mm-hmm. The people's lives are affected by state and local government. So it's very important that national law, which deals with a number of, agencies that are governed at the national level, be replicated to impact lives on the local level, right? So that's happened. A number of states, we have a few states in Nigeria, a number of states have started adopting it, and it's become a trend where a few states are taking that on. And what's really important about that is that the conversation continues, right? Law, no law, people are actually sitting down and going, entrepreneurship is important, innovation is important. So innovation entrepreneurs are important to how we grow our states and our environment. So that conversation continues, and that's critical. Now, that is looking into Nigeria, but looking out of Nigeria, a number of countries are also taking very strong positions, being driven from work that's happened in Tunisia, Senegal, and Nigeria. A number of other countries have also gone ahead and developed startup acts, or just created a larger focus and more focus on the laws that will affect and guide and push and enable startups and innovation entrepreneurs in there. And also that also extends to SMEs, right? So MSMEs, startups are just fancy MSMEs. That's the truth of the matter. So whatever you do for startups as a focus, because startups are really fast growing businesses, will ultimately also impact and help and enable, because what we want is enabling policies, SMEs. So a number of countries have done that. I mean, Congo, I think, there's a few of them. Ghana is working on one now. Ethiopia just released one, and there are a few others. Algeria, that are actually working on startup policy, or have already done the startup policies that are going to impact positive growth in the innovation and entrepreneurship space.
A thought came to my mind, and thinking of like a lot of what you're talking about is the civics of it all, and the how we as people participate in the governance of our countries, our cities, our this, that, and the other. And so I'm wondering, and I don't want to beat this down as so far, but is there a different word that might resonate more for the people that's not policy? Like, so if we were to take and think about a different word, because I think about this all the time, I think part of our challenge is that we're using the wrong words. So if there were a different word that we might use to describe how we create system change or enable system transformation, can you think of one or a set of words?
Yeah, so the word is a C word, right? It's collaboration.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we go back and think about what I said earlier about the individualism of me saying I'm the ecosystem. The ecosystem is really made up of private sector and public sector.
Right.
So it's collaboration between the two. So if you notice, I haven't been a policymaker. If you notice, anytime you have a policy position that causes havoc to it just doesn't make sense. Let's just say misalignment.
Yeah.
It's always lack of coordination in the public sector. So it will be like not CBN, the central bank of sorts.
Mm-hmm.
Will say, we're going to do this, this, this. Then your SEC will now say, we're doing this, this, and this. And when you look at it, then your tax man is saying, we're going to do X. Then your customs is saying, we're going to do Y. And then when you put it together, you're like, wait a minute, this environment, I can't do business in this exact setup because it doesn't make sense. All these things are kind of conflicting. So that's a lack of coordination in the public sector, right? Then if you also have a lack of coordination in the private sector, and this is where most of us absolutely miss it. But if you work in government, you stand there, you can actually see how fantastic the lack of coordination is in the private sector, even in the request that comes to you, right? So it becomes the access thing, it becomes a relationship thing in a sense that, I'm one removed from the minister, I'm two removed from the agency head. So I can just go there and ask for a very specific thing that helps my very specific business, but doesn't broaden the basis for everybody else, right? So in that situation, there's a lack of coordination in the private sector, which will lead to a destruction of value.
Mm-hmm.
And then ultimately, lack of collaboration between these two is a dysfunctional ecosystem. I majored in biology, so a lot of times I look at these things as biological ecosystem. In any ecosystem where you have a lack of balance, even sometimes they say, if you kill all the foxes, this other thing is going to overgrow. When that thing overgrows, this other thing is going to overgrow and everything's going to be destabilized. Exact same thing in the human ecosystem when it comes to business, right? So if we don't have that balance between the private sector and the public sector, is going to have a weird kind of growth where there are going to be a few successes. The entire continent of Africa has 7 unicorns. Not that we really count unicorns. What we really want is gazelles. You want companies that just thrive over time and able to hire people and so forth and so on. You know that description that we talk about on the continent. But it's only 7.
Yeah.
Right? So that speaks to environmental issues. Whereas I saw a report recently that did the top 12 countries, and top 20 countries, and the lowest was about 12, and it's a country.
Oh, wow.
Right?
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. So, so the entire continent has 7. And those 7 are probably not really African companies if you look at the structure and registration.
Exactly.
So all that speaks to the environment. Those are all policy issues.
Mm-hmm.
So I wouldn't spend too much time trying to relabel the word policy. I would say we need to take a more collaborative approach to engaging government, from us first coordinating the private sector to ultimately collaborating to engage government to ensure that we're getting the right environment that we deserve. And what's also interesting about that, you mentioned young people. I remember one time I was giving a talk to young people, and I said to them, the people who type up these policy and do the research in this policy are your classmates.
Right. Yeah.
When you go to any agency, everybody there is not 80 years old.
It's literally,
They're not
you're
50.
right. The people who are typing it up. The question is, how engaged are they? And how are they sharing that amongst their peers?
Yeah. You should be in a bar drinking with them and telling them what you're trying to accomplish in the business and seeing how the policy space can guide. But what tends to happen becomes an apathy. You go to government, I go to private sector, never the two shall meet.
Yeah. That's a very, very clear distinction in Africa. I will say that was it's a bit different in the States. So I think these are values and mindset changes that we need to think about. So let me ask you about your mindset hack. How do you hack your mindset?
How do I hack my mindset?
Yes.
So I think we carry a lot of things over the years, which I sort of look at as a toolkit, right? So every experience is new value that's added to you. I tell people all the time, going to government and coming back from government, wow, I look at things so different. I have a whole new perspective on certain things. I hear certain announcements and I laugh because I can understand how that could come about.
Mm-hmm.
And I can get a sense of how that leads into the next thing. Mindsets, every year, I think we all have a new year and we say to ourselves, this is my mantra for the year. I think increasingly as you get older, you start to understand the importance of focus and the importance of value in how you spend your time and who you associate with and what you're working on.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of the things that drives me to the work I do now in policy, because I see it as the 2 main areas that we need to approach in almost every sector to help grow the continent, and that's in infrastructure and policy. And my time in infrastructure continues.
Mm-hmm.
I'm primarily an engineer. I've built infrastructure. I continue to build infrastructure. That's never going to go away. But that just shows my foray into policy, is to find that marriage where we're building infrastructure, but we're also putting the right policies in space that helps the digital economy grow, which is one of the critical sectors for the future.
Mm-hmm.
And I know people who are doing this for agri, I know people who are doing this for health, I know people who are doing this for other sectors. So we need to enter all these sectors and basically build infrastructure and ultimately guide the policy space to ensure that value is being created and we're being focused on creating value.
When you say that, I want to now understand. Tell us about DigiDay. Yeah, let's talk about DigiDay. So you gave us great segue into that. Tell us about it. How did it come about? And how does that keep you passionate about this work?
So, like I said, I wanted to go see what was behind the wall. So I get behind this wall. I sort of parachuted in and I get behind this wall and I go, wow, this is really interesting. I tell people one of the very first things I did when I got to the State House was I dropped off mail at the front gate. And I wanted to see what happens when that mail gets to me.
Good idea. I like that.
I've been to several clients over the years. I've sat in several offices. I worked in New York. I've never really been concerned about how the mail got to me. Just the mail got to me. But in this instance, when I got there, that was one of the beauty of that experience because it was really, really new to me. But I felt that one of the big parts of policy is process.
Yeah.
One of the big parts of project or program management is process, right? Understanding the processes that guides the environments in which you play in. So that's why it was important to me to know how the mail got to me and how long it took to get to me. Now, how was that somewhat beneficial? So one of the things about the Nigerian Startup Act that people talk about is that it was very fast, that we did it very quickly. A lot of times, this kind of bills take 5 to 6 years.
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
We did it about 14 months. One of the tricks to that was the fact that I knew how mail got to me.
Information technology, yeah.
Yeah, because the thing about that is that if somebody said to me, and I learned this quick, somebody said to me, sir, this document is ready. We're going to send it to you. I say, no, I'll come get it.
Exactly.
Because I knew how mail got to me. So when all that ended, right, it became a case of, okay, what do you do next with this new knowledge that you have? You now know how mail gets to you in government. One of the things that drove you to come to the continent was, how do you add value to your continent? You've done infrastructure, you built infrastructure, you created standards for several things in the industry when it comes to infrastructure. Now you're just done policy. You've actually just passed an act through legislation. You've got it accepted by the president. It's a unique experience. Every experience is unique, but this experience is unique when you put it on top of your other experiences in the private sector. So you're an entrepreneur. It's just the same way we're home for 6 months to release the book, right? You're giving me policy, and I've seen what policy can do, how policy can actually impact lives, how policy can actually drive infrastructure, how policy can actually guide businesses. The fintech boom we see was started by policy. If the policy wasn't in place, you could fintech all you want. It's not fitting anywhere. It's just going to be stuck. So policy is an enabler of growth. What you want to develop market-creating policy to grow Africa. Now, how do we help that happen? Now, we help that happen by being an entrepreneur and creating a firm, right, which is about 2 and so years old, that helps governments and private sector create market-enabling policy.
Okay.
Right? So it's the entrepreneur side of me that's led to starting a company that does it.
Sure, right.
And over a very short period of time, we found ourselves in very interesting rooms across the continent. We often say within Digite that when we say Africa, we mean Africa. And that means in the morning, we're having a conversation in Algeria. By night, we're having a conversation in Zambia. In the middle somewhere, we had a conversation in Ghana, Angola, and Sierra Leone. And in some of these clients, we've either developed frameworks to help with the innovation entrepreneurship policy for the country, or we've helped them with a startup act, or we've helped them with doing analysis on their investments framework, angel investing. So it's all different types of things that we've done in a number of countries, or it could just be that we planned an event. So there are a number of events on the continent where it is a gathering of ministerial level type people to discuss commercialization of ideas, right? So when you think of commercialization of ideas, you start thinking about IP type policy. You start thinking about policy around knowledge transfer. You start thinking about policy around taxation, double taxation. You start looking at the issues from a thematic perspective versus broad-based issues. Broad-based issues are issues that affect all businesses equally, right? Whilst thematic issues are issues that are specific to industry. So if you're thinking about climate, you're thinking about green tech, what are the policies that need to specifically guide green tech? If you're thinking of fintech, health tech, what are the policies that are required in those spaces? So it's really vast, and there's a lot of work to do. And that's why, so let me tell you something. I don't think I've ever said, maybe I have, I don't think I've said it publicly before. I would say the work is ahead. The reason I first said that is that after the Startup Act was done, there was this celebratory thing that happened. It's almost like, what are you going to do now? You won the Super Bowl, right? And the first thing that came out of me was like, the work is literally ahead, right? There's so much more to do, right? Yeah. So there's so much work to do. And that's what Digit A is set up to do, is set up to help African governments, also private enterprise, to develop policy, which is strategy in the entrepreneurship innovation space.
So the biggest roadblock to real effective policy is actually that implementation, and you have execution as one of your major service offerings. So thinking about your cross-border works, what does that involve? Training? What does that actually involve in terms of actually getting the implementation side right and done?
It's about process. Last year, we released a document with the GIZ in Nigeria, which is implementation framework.
Okay.
So public policy implementation framework, which really was to help guide, it's basically a framework, a set of guidelines on how to implement collaborative policy. And it's really about, so that falls under capacity building, right? So it's really about capacity building, getting the mindset right around what we're trying to achieve, not building these things in silos. And ultimately, we could also just come in with a team and help them execute the various aspects of the provisions in the policy work. So it's a range of stuff, but it really does start with capacity building. It starts with the approach on how the policy was developed. A lot of times implementation dies very early on based on how the policy was derived, how the policy was developed. If it was done in silos, then it doesn't really have the broad range of support that it demands to make change. one of the fantastic things about the Nigerian Startup Act is that it continues to remain trendy, continues to remain conversational.
Mm-hmm.
And that's because it's owned by 1,000 people, right? It's owned by
Mm.
thousands of people.
Yeah.
People have ownership of it. I still work in rooms, not even in Nigeria, where people go, Oswald, Nigerian Startup Act. I say, yes. So that speaks volumes to the approach in which it was developed.
Yeah.
Right? More than what's on paper. Because even I, as part of the people who put it together, who architected it and put it on paper, I look at it from the corner of my eye sometimes and go, whoa, wait a minute. Ooh, that provision. Ooh.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe we should have thought about that differently, right?
Mm-hmm.
And my version of my device, I have this device where I write on. I have markings on it, on things I would like to change. Yeah. So it's not the words on paper. Like I said earlier, provisions and policies are really pain points within the ecosystem that need to be converted to provisions. Right. So you can't get it all right off the first bat. A startup act would need several versions over years to get it right, and the pain points mature. So it's a living document. So the provisions should and must mature alongside. But I would say that is one track. The other track is how it's done, right? The approach, the collaborativeness of the process is critical to the success of the implementation.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So I can't let you go on this tech talk without talking about AI. Especially AI policy. So you've been traveling around the continent, and one of the most important, I believe, necessities that African countries need to understand and need to harness and hold on to is the idea of what are our AI policies? Because true to your point, we are attempting to leapfrog, and we really can't do that. That is the number one problem with this AI implementation, and really recognizing where are our people in this timeline to be able to really leverage it and us not be the victims, particularly environmentally, to what the West is trying to do. So tell us, where are you and how has your work faced and landed with AI policy across the continent?
So, AI, I love AI. I use it a lot. In fact, I just told one of my employees to do something on AI just a few minutes ago. But I think the problem is leapfrogging.
Yes.
Right. And being an infrastructure person and now a policy person, it scares me that we may find ourselves left behind again.
Yes.
Because if we take the approach of leapfrogging, then we'll be left behind. So here's an unpopular position that I often tell people. Mobile technology on the continent was great because everybody got phones, fantastic, right? But it was bad for the developmental cycle of Africa.
Yes, I agree.
Because now what's happened is that we don't have fiber in the ground.
Yep.
And we don't have the rigor in process and to have the right tracks along the roadside. All of that is all behind. So if you say tomorrow to do AI properly on the user side, you must have FTTH, which is fiber to the home, or what I hear now from some of my fiber guys, FTTR, which is fiber to the room. Woohoo! How do you do it? When you leapfrog from having teledensity, really low teledensity, to now having a mobile platform, everybody has a phone. In fact, Africans, we have 3, 4. You've leapfrogged. So now when you come to a point where the best way to actually use the technology is to go over fiber, you skip that entire, so it's a problem. So the same thing may happen with AI if we don't look at it guidedly, that we need to go through the entire process.
Yeah.
If we have one small, beautiful culture in Ghana somewhere, that culture has not been digitized, it runs the risk of being mimicked on AI, right? So people like me, I'm a Benin man. I come from a very, very rich, multiple thousands of years old culture. When I see AI versions of my culture online, it pisses me off because I don't see myself in it. And I don't see myself in the typography of it.
Right.
And I don't even buy the art rendition. Oh, this is art. No.
Yeah.
I don't buy it. Right? Get it right and then do the art rendition of it. But your art rendition of it based on AI is losing the entire foundation of what we are. So, but those type of things happen because we've not digitized our content. We've not digitized our culture. We've not digitized our paper. We're still very much in paper. So the AI policy needs to start from there. The evolutionary path from AI is very clear. Paper needs to turn to digits. Digits need to turn to some systemic pool of data. Systemic pool of data needs to be machine learned over. Machine learning turns to intelligence. Intelligence turns to whatever commercialization of AI you choose to use. Because that's what all these things with ChatGPT, all commercialization of AI. AI is 50 years old.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? So the policy needs to ensure we're not leapfrogging. The policy needs to actually start from digitization.
Yes, exactly.
Right?
You're right.
The policy needs to start from a version of data sovereignty.
Yes.
Without the rudeness of it. I don't know how else to say that.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. But if you look at the state of affairs when it comes to data, if you look at all the companies, I mean, I'm on Google. I'm not going to lie. We are right now on some platform that is something else.
Yeah.
Zoho is in Africa now. It's so cheap. Everybody's there. Where's that data sitting?
Yeah.
Not to name brands. I usually try to avoid that, but it's happened. But the fact is our data is sitting everywhere else but Africa.
Yes, exactly.
And then in the same breath, you want to have an argument about the commercial value or the business sense in building data centers on the continent, where we don't have real problem with electricity if you locate it in the right location, or water.
Right.
So the things that I really needed to run the chillers and the real data center engine and the tier 4, thinking about the diversity that goes into data and redundancy that goes into the data center can be done on the continent on a cheaper scale. But we have this conversation about, is it business? I had this exact conversation at 5 a.m. this morning with someone who's looking about investing in a data center in Nigeria. And the question is, does it make sense? I'm sitting there going, well,
makes a lot of sense.
1.5 billion people, all that data has to go somewhere. It's just that right now it's dispersed across the continent. And then you look at our telecoms, right?
Yeah.
Who is really carrying our connectivity? Where does it go? So all these are things that need to go into AI. Otherwise, what's going to happen is that we'll build all this on borrowed infrastructure and we wouldn't really have our AI. It would just be, we're users again. Once again, we'll become users.
Exactly. Yeah. I hear you. 100% on that. And I'm a big science fiction and Afrofuturist fan. So when I read stories, particularly Nadia Corford, who has a lot of series that talk about this and the AI of it and what could happen, we just have to be mindful. I think you've made a great point about where we need to encourage investment is in ground zero, which is how do we get back to the place where we were? So let's take a flip a little bit.
All right.
And let's talk about your service. You are on boards and have been for some time. So tell us about what it's like for you to be on board experiences and also working with your fraternity, because I know that those are big parts of your identity and who you are. So tell us about those relationships and how those help you to be this person that you are.
So, wow, fraternity. I mean, fraternity has been a very interesting experience over 30 years now.
Yeah. And it's so funny. I saw that. And the reason why I particularly asked was my father is also a Kappa. So he's 86.
Explains you're cool.
That's the Kappas always say.
Well, you know what's funny about that? I never knew that.
Yeah, most people don't know.
I never knew this.
Yeah, but I mean, he's old. I mean, when he moved to, he still carries his Kappa Alpha Psi little bag from way back when.
Nice.
So.
Is he in Ghana?
He's in Ghana, yeah.
Oh, no, you got to hook us up. No. You got to hook us up. And he's from 86.
No. He is 86 years old.
Oh, your dad's 86. Oh, no, you definitely got to hook us up.
Yeah. I'll at least send you a picture with his bag, because that's his bag. He carries it everywhere.
No, please do. I love, this is brilliant. This is the whole reason why we're talking today. This is fantastic. So Kappa Alpha Psi, socially, it was fantastic in college. But you just basically grew up alongside a lot of young men who had the same kind of mindset around achievement and how to get things done. So that also helps to form your identity, right? In the sense that you now have, and this is always if you're true to the ideals, right? You now have this couple of 100,000 people. I mean, not everybody's looking at you, obviously. You have the 5 that you went to school with who are looking at you to ensure that you deliver on your talents and skills, and you're not messing around. They literally pull you up. I mean, if you're off base, and this is in personal life and in professional life, you'd be surprised the phone call you get. It's no joke. So I look at it as just another group of people who have an ownership of and responsibility to your output, who you're responsible to,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And you know that you can't screw things up because they didn't say answer your papa name in Africa, right?
Mm-hmm.
This also answer your fraternity name. You
Mm-hmm.
can't just be a
Mm-hmm.
kappa messing up out there.
Yeah.
It doesn't work. So it's been a fantastic time. It's about 33 years of brotherhood, which has been amazing. And you mentioned boards. I mean, boards are interesting. There's so many different types. Either you're an advisor to some young person who has some crazy idea, and what they tap into is your experience, especially on the continent.
Yeah.
Your experience on the continent, which is always great because a lot of times it just offers somebody else to do better than you've done based on how they take your experience and your advice and adapt it to their everyday reality in their business. I tell people all the time that, Africa is a very difficult place to create value, but a very rewarding place to be when you do create that value.
Yeah.
And the impact is immense. But it tends to be very difficult in how the multiply effects, right? So your 1 doesn't always equals 5, where in America, your 0.5 could equal 10.
Yeah.
Right? So those are difficult. But then there's also boards that you sit on that you learn, right? Right? So it also enriches you. You sit there and then you're the one who's learning from the conversation and learning from the business activities and how they're impacting the country and the continent. So it's a blessing.
Definitely. I definitely appreciate that. And so 2 more questions. Glocal speak. So we want to hear what you hear. So a word, a phrase, or a saying that's a meaningful part of your local experience, either in Delaware or Nigeria, and how or why you came to value it as Glocal speak.
Absolutely nothing comes to mind. I think when you move around too much, the adaptiveness and the elasticity of travel. You're downloading different things every time. There's nothing local speak about Delaware. I mean, I barely leave my house in Delaware. I'm just working. I'm just here.
Right.
It's family time.
Yeah.
I think that the idea of Africa as Africa is the future is overstated and even misguided. I think what we really need to start looking at is that Africa is now.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Yep.
I think we tend to get stuck in a transitive verb, as Africa is rising.
Yes.
No. We're inside it now. This is the now, right? So Africa is now. And we need to capitalize on that. And we need to actually do the work, both backwards and forwards, that needs to make that reality a bit more firmer for the continent. But there's so much value, so much resources, and so much impact to be done.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And I was having a conversation the other night with some Black Americans. We were just talking about Africa. And I was very intent on letting them know, because I was like, I want to come. I want to know. I was like, look, we need the diaspora. Black people globally, we need the diaspora. And what I challenge my peers, because these are people who are seasoned professionals, they have a lot of money, they have connections, is that what I ask you to do is not think about investing in Africa the way you think necessarily about investing in the US, where you're looking at these long-term gains, this ROI. Think about you're investing in a lifestyle. Because the lifestyle that you might see yourself wanting to live in Africa relies on you to invest in something that might be totally different than what you thought it would be. But to your point, Africa is now. So that now is about what kind of lifestyle is it that we are creating for ourselves. So thinking about lifestyle, when you're not working, when you're not changing lives, who are you? Are you a reader? Are you a watcher? Are you a listener? And what are some of your favorite reads, watches, or listens, or other things you do in your spare time?
This reading thing, You probably know about this. So just yesterday, right? I think you have a bug in my office because you're asking all these questions that just happened yesterday, day before yesterday. I was telling my partner in GGT that policy work affects reading.
I can.
I mean, in any given day, in any given day, you're reading a 10-page document, 20-page document, 30-page document. After that, why would you want to go read a book?
Yeah, I know.
And it's a struggle. So I'm reading. I have this book on my desk now. Scott Galloway, The Four. And I just finished Chimanda's book.
Which one? The latest one?
Yeah, the new one. Yeah, I read it. I put it down for a bit and I picked it back up, and it's actually good when you get into it.
Yeah, it's a good one.
And a book I tell people a lot about because I actually really enjoyed it is AI 2041.
I didn't have that one. Okay.
Oh, you're going to love it. I think I may even need to read it again. It's just the way the book is structured. It basically paints the picture. Oh, yeah, you're a futurist. You're going to love it.
Yeah, exactly. Too, when you said that, I'm like, this is what I'm...
Yeah. So it basically paints AI 2041 like what's happening with AI in 2041, and tells you all, then in the next part of the chapter, it tells you how that's going to happen, what technologies are happening right now that will lead to
Ooh, I
that.
love it. Yeah, good one. Good
Yeah.
one. Good one.
Yeah.
Good one. Good one.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. So that's a good book. So I always tell people who talk about AI to read that book, and it gives you a sense of where things are going, and then frightens you to see where we are and how we need to get things going.
Yeah.
Downtime. I was just telling a friend yesterday that this morning that I need to learn how to rest.
Mm-hmm.
But I watch shows.
Mm-hmm.
I lose myself in shows.
Mm-hmm.
I play music, and as you know, I collect LPs now. So
I do.
I listen to music, I play music, and I watch shows.
Yeah.
I want to read more, but that reading thing is hard after you just read
Yeah, I remember.
a 10-page document 5 times, and you're like, nah. And then you have a bunch of analysts creating all these different documents. You're reading them. You got to make sure the spirit of what we're trying to achieve is in the document.
Yeah. Yeah.
You don't want to pick up a book after that.
I hear you. I hear you. It's a balance. And that rest is important too. So in time, we will get to all. But those are great. Those are great shares for our listeners. Oswald, thank you. This has been so beautiful.
No, thank you.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
before we...
After 5 years.
I
check us
know,
out.
exactly. So before we say au revoir pour maintenant, do you have any last thoughts you'd like to share with our listeners?
I think I've said a lot. I think, I think it's just really about what I'm focusing myself on, and it's that word focus, right? Focus, value creation. There's nothing else.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And that speaks to how you spend your time, who you spend your time with, and what activities you're doing. You have to determine what's the value in it.
Yep. I like it. Great last words. All right, Glocal citizens, this has been another episode of the podcast. You can catch us Tuesdays with new episodes at glocalcitizenspod.com or wherever you get your podcasts. Please do like, share, subscribe, leave us a review. Let us hear from you. We are 300 plus episodes in, and I don't hear a lot from my audience. So I need you all to be telling us something. Send us guests, all that good stuff, because this is only happening because we love you and want to share stories of dynamic diasporans making global and local impact. So on that note, until next time, bye for now.